Okay, so after we started the federal funds market, we actually can use the model we learned, the supply and the demand of the reserve, to find out why the federal funds rate may change. So in the first case, we are going to study the monetary policy conducted by the Federal Reserve. So in this case, Federal Reserve will use the open market purchase of the securities. So you have to draw the graph, the federal funds market. The demand curve for the reserve is look like this. And the supply curve for the reserve it look like this. And you can show initially the federal funds rate stay at this level, IFF 0. So if Federal Reserve decide to purchase the securities in the open market, what happened to the reserve? And because this is action by the Federal Reserve, and the Fed control the supply of the reserve, this event will affect the supply curve. When the Fed buys securities in the open market from the bank, they basically pay bank with the reserve, or you can say they pay bank with the money. Because they pay bank with the reserve, they actually add more reserve into the system. Or we can say they increase the supply of the reserve. So the supply curve will shift to the right. But here there's a really important assumption you have to keep in mind. When the Federal Reserve uses the open market purchase to reduce the federal funds rate, normally they will also reduce the discount rate. So assumption here is the Fed will raise and lower discount rate ID at the same time that it raise and lowers the federal funds rate. And you can see because the supply curve here shift to the right, you can find out the new equilibrium points. So that's the new equilibrium interest rate in the federal funds market, IFF1. So federal funds rate reduces. Based on our assumptions, the discount rate and the federal funds rate normally move together. And we know discount rate is kind of like a ceiling of the federal funds market. And if you see the federal funds rate reduce, in this case, the discount rate will also reduce. So which means the supply curve will shift like this. The vertical part shift to the right, and the horizontal part and shift downward. So after the Federal Reserve buys security in the open market, we find out the conclusion. it actually reduced federal funds rate.